And thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And I'd like to introduce our esteemed instructor, Randy Johnson. And if you could tell him a little bit, Randy, about yourself, so we can make sure everybody can hear.
Okay, y'all, is this loud enough? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Well, y'all, the first thing I can see where y'all are just north of Austin there, and I just left there last Wednesday helping a client plant a bunch of stuff. And I just wanted to say I am a fighting Texas Aggie. So,
Okay, that's it. We're over.
there you go. Yeah. Well, y'all know real quick, I got my degree in wildlife biology from Texas A&M and I've been a director of horticulture at the Texas Discovery Gardens, Botanical Garden in Fair Park in Dallas, and same position at the Dallas Zoo. And now I grow native plants. I have a native plant nursery. I do consultations. So that's what I do now. But and also do public speaking. I love doing presentations like this. I really, at heart, I'm an educator. At least I think I am. Y'all tell me at the end of this if y'all learned anything or not. That's the proof in the pudding right there. But y'all, I really just want to say thank y'all for coming tonight. I put this one of the first PowerPoint presentations I ever put together. So it's kind of crude by any standards, but the information's there. It's solid still. And I would actually, it's good because if you don't know much about milkweed or the dynamics surrounding the plant, it's very important. It's what we call a keystone plant in the environment. It's a keystone genus, Asclepias, the genus of the milkweed we're going to talk about and what y'all are going to propagate. And a keystone means I'm old. I can see the audience out there. I see some gray hair, so I feel safe in saying that y'all know what a keystone is. It's that stone at the arc of a bridge or anything else that if you take it out, the thing collapses. So a keystone species in an ecosystem is one that if you remove it, bad things happen. And this happens to be one of those genera that is very important. So again, a little intro about milkweed. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about we'll open up for Q&A because y'all are going to be doing propagation. It's not hard to propagate, but there's a few tricks around it. And especially after you get it germinated, the thing likes to go into summer dormancy, which is called estivation. And it does it at the most inopportune times, the time you don't want it to. And one day it looks great. The next day you come out and it's gone and you go, oh my God, what happened? Well, nothing happened. It just went away for a little bit. So it kind of confound you. So with that, y'all, if y'all don't mind, I'm going to share this screen to the PowerPoint and we'll carry on with this. So y'all, this right here is a monarch butterfly chrysalis. And this is I call monarch butterflies charismatic fauna because everybody swoons over them, big, beautiful thing. And I love them because if people manage for that insect, they're going to be managing for a host of other things. So a lot of diversity. Y'all, just one thing I'll say about this too, diversity, that word. If you take nothing else away from this presentation tonight, you want a high species diversity in your landscape that will cover almost all the bases, and I mean all of them. So that's why I titled this presentation Native Milkweeds, a Hub of Biodiversity. Y'all have the genus Asclepias in north central Texas. That word Asclepios is actually the name of a Greek god, the son of Apollo, the god of medicine. Native Americans use this plant a lot, and there's a lot of medicinal applications for this plant. It's also toxic, so you got to be very careful. We actually make heart medicine out of compounds in this plant that are called cardiac glycosides. And those cardinalides, those are the compounds that the monarch butterfly that hosts on this plant, they need those compounds. If they can't get them, they die. They can't develop without them. So in the Shinner's book, that's the Flora of North Central Texas. That's the big giant Bible that BRIT, Botanical Research Institute of Texas, publishes. They list 13 species historic to North Texas. But in North Texas around here, y'all aren't in North Texas, but where we are, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that's where I'm in Mesquite, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas on the east side. Here's the four we see. Y'all do see these down around Austin. Depends on the soil type and your moisture levels. But the three you're going to propagate tonight are in this picture. Here's Asclepias asperula. This is antelope horns. I think y'all have these seeds. This is probably the most common one around Austin. And when you get south of the DFW area, when soils get thinner, your climate gets drier, and further west, this is probably the more dominant big milkweed that you see. Very nice milkweed. Y'all, another thing too, these flowers, they all are usually wonderfully scented. So get your nose down in there in the milkweed flowers and smell of them. They all smell really good. This is Asclepias inothyroides. I think y'all are propagating this one as well. This is side cluster milkweed, and I love that wavy leaf margin. It's got to see that little slight pubescence on that leaf, those little hairs. Really nice. Flowers are kind of different form than Asclepias viridis or asperula, which is the next one I'm fixing to show you is viridis, but very nice, very beautiful right here. And if you don't really show it in this picture, but the veins in the leaves of this species are often pink, and offset against that green is really nice. This is a really showy one. There's a close-up of the flowers of inothyroides. That's your side cluster, also called zyzotes. Y'all learn the botanical names. There's two common names for this plant right here, and they're regional. I mean, one guy might know what you're talking about, another guy might not at all, but if you use Asclepias inothyroides, plant people are going to know exactly what species. Beautiful flower. Oh, backed up. Sorry, y'all. Y'all don't have this one probably. If you do, it's probably on your belt of Blackland Prairie, just east of y'all. Asclepias viridiflora. I think this is one of the most beautiful Asclepias flowers. Look at this close up. It's gorgeous. Y'all, Asclepias viridis. This is probably not as common down where y'all are because this one lacks deeper soils and a little bit more soil moisture. But this is probably the biggest, juiciest, fattest leaf of the milkweeds in North Texas. So it's a great host plant. There's a lot of material for caterpillars and other insects to eat on. Monarch butterflies aren't the only insect that hosts on Asclepias. There's a close-up of Asclepias viridis. Flowers, very unusual. Y'all, let's talk about the ecology surrounding this plant. Three key characteristics which help a plant increase biomass. Now, why is that important right here? Because this plant gets eaten. It's a host plant. That means something lays its egg on it and then whatever the offspring is, eats it. So monarch butterfly female comes along this time of year or a little bit earlier for y'all because they're coming from Mexico, south to north. So y'all see them before we do up here. They find the plant, suitable plant, lay the egg, caterpillar hatches, and they start eating. The fastest growing thing on earth is a butterfly or moth caterpillar. If a human baby grew at the same rate, I've heard it said that in 2 weeks it'd weigh 200 pounds. That's fast. They got to grow quick. So plants that evolve getting eaten, they need to recover quickly. So there's a few characteristics around those kinds of plants which I find interesting. They grow as fast as possible, so they recover very quickly. They either have toxins or poisons to deter herbivory or something eating them. And let me tell you something, the milky white latex sap of this plant is really sticky. It wouldn't have a good mouth feel. I'll put it like that. And the ability to attract predatory insects. Listen to this. Plants that get eaten, they produce these compounds called sesquiterpenes, these chemical compounds, like a body odor. They send it out there. And beneficial insects detect that smell and they come to that plant looking for whatever is attacking that plant. So that is really cool, I think. But I'm a plant nerd. So, and you know what? Y'all just keep drinking that beer and you'll think it's cool too in just a minute. They grow faster than you can eat them. So that's one of the characteristics. DNA studies find that newer species of milkweed are evolving to grow faster in response to herbivory. So here's a monarch caterpillar and it's eating this leaf. And look at the black stuff on the left side of the margin and the stuff, one little thing at the bottom, that's caterpillar poop. And it's called frass, F-R-A-S-S. So if you see that on a leaf, you probably got a caterpillar somewhere close. Cardinalize, they produce toxins or poisons even to deter. So, but what these guys do is they sequester those toxins. And then if something tries to eat them, they're really bitter. And usually they'll spit this caterpillar out or the adult butterfly. Now, sometimes it might be damaged to the point where it can't recover, but that imprints on the animal trying to predate on it, so they don't try that caterpillar or that butterfly again. That's why we have so much mimicry, like viceroy butterflies look just like monarchs, but they don't have any toxins in them. But hey, if you can get away with fooling somebody without having to actually eat the toxic plant, that's probably okay too. And then look, here's another thing too. So you don't really need to hide that often if you've got things coming around to eat the stuff trying to bother you. So that's actually this one, sesquiterpenes. The trait to produce sesquiterpenes appears to be genetically linked to faster growth. So plants that grow faster, for some reason, are probably getting eaten. Now, nature doesn't sit around thinking about this. This is all in response to things. So look at the bottom. Milkweed evolved to favor fast growth and the ability to attract predators while putting less energy into resisting herbivores. So look, if they have to put less energy into producing compounds like toxins, and they can just ring an alarm bell and somebody will come take care of the problem for them, that's more energy they can produce and put in leaf growth or seed production. Reproduction is really what in nature, that's the game, right? So everything is geared toward higher rates of reproduction or successful reproduction. So plants like this produce a lot of seeds, so they throw a lot of numbers at the problem of reproduction. Things like elephants, gestation period over a year, they put a lot of energy into holding that baby for a long time, so that when it comes out, when it's born, it's fully formed and can do its thing. So there's the extremes of the strategies of reproduction, but again, tied into this. Y'all on this picture, for example, look, you see the yellow things are aphids. You see the big ladybug, they're eating aphids. And then the other things that are hard to identify, those are lacewing larvae, and they're also eating aphids. So here's the thing about milkweed. They attract aphids. And typically we don't like aphids, but aphids love milkweed. So they'll come to this plant over other plants. So in your yard, if you've got milkweed, instead of everything getting aphids on it, probably they'll be localized to your milkweed. And then the beneficials come and they start either laying eggs or directly themselves eating the aphids. So and they reproduce on this plant. We'll see slides of that in just a minute too. So it becomes a beneficial insect nursery, basically, if you have milkweed in your landscape. Now here is young milkweed seedlings. I just watered this seed flat, so the capillary action on the water droplets is holding a key physiological characteristic of a milkweed seedling that I'll show you in the last couple of slides. So you'll know when your seeds germinate, like, yes, that's Asclepias, because not much of anything else looks like this seedling. It's got a very unique cotyledon arrangement. Cotyledons are embryonic leaves. That's the first leaves you see right there. They have stored carbohydrates, which pushes root growth. So here's a young seed pod of a green milkweed. Just show you some interesting stuff here about milkweed. Here, y'all listen, if you see it looks almost like a maple tree seed. Can you see the thing right below the honeybee and kind of mixed in with that purple part of the flower? It's yellow with a little black head on it. That's actually the pollinium. That's the pollen structure of milkweed. Milkweed pollen is not dust-like we think most pollens are. It's actually a structure, and that's it. And it's actually been pulled off that flower, but there's one attached to this bee's leg too. So if you're collecting milkweed seeds, this is what you want to look for when you collect them. Do not collect a seed that has not dihest along the suture line. When it does that, the seed are ready, they're mature. If you get them earlier than this, they can germinate, but you'll have a weak, stunted seedling. So if you're collecting seeds, wait until they're ready. Got to be patient, and always leave a few. Y'all, there'll be 500 seeds in this pod, and each one is genetically unique. So that's important. That's biodiversity. So if you're collecting milkweed, and they're in this stage right here, there'll be a bunch of others out there. So take 10 or 20 from each pod, and then leave the rest to disperse naturally. Y'all, these things are several names: silk, pilosa, other things, but these actually, when the seed is forming, think of these like blood vessels. These are how the plant supplies the seed with nutrients and energy while it's growing, actually. And once that's done, when the seeds mature, these things dry and become the agent of seed dispersal. They carry them away on the wind like a little parachute. Y'all, another little deal right here. We just had Memorial Day. I'm a big patriotic guy and I like military history. During World War II, this was a strategic national resource, that fuzz that was collected. It's called kapok. That was collected for life preservers for the U.S. Navy. So you had people all over the country out in the fields collecting milkweed pods just to get this white stuff, because it's hydrophobic. It will not take on water and it stays lofted. So that's what life vests during World War II were made out of. That's ready. Y'all, and hummingbirds use this for their little nest, chickadees, all kind of things use that to line their nests. And it's soft. It's soft as down. Y'all, look at all this. Let's talk about stuff surrounding the plant. What comes to milkweed? Y'all, there was a guy at a community college in Illinois and went out to a prairie around the school there. And for 1 week, he went to the same milkweed plant, same plant, for 1 week, and he watched it for 8 hours a day, like your full work week, 7 days. Over those 7 days and that time, he recorded over 400 species of insects coming to that one plant. Now, what they were all doing, we knew some of it and some we didn't know, but that's a keystone. That's an important plant. So this is just a sampling of the stuff. You got a lynx spider because he knows that pollinators are coming to the flowers and he's going to get some dinner. Here's that study. Patrick Darley is this guy's name. Yeah, 457 different kinds of insects. Lots of different activity around this plant. And look at this. This is a carpenter bee. Look at the base. Those are called tarsi. They don't have feet, but the last little claw on the end of that leg is called a tarsi. And look at those little yellow things attached at the ends. Those are all pollination. We know now that bees and bumblebees are the primary pollinators of milkweed plants because that little pollination is hard to pull off that flower. And for that reason, it doesn't want anything accidental to come along and knock it off, or it wants the right insect that can carry it to the next plant. Very complex pollination on this plant, way different than most angiosperms. Here's a little jumping spider. He's waiting for a small pollinator to come, and they do come. It attracts all different kinds of things, ants, and all different sizes of insects. Here's a honeybee, and y'all look right here at this. Look at the honeybee. Look at the lower left-hand part of this picture. There's a crab spider hiding in there. And if that bee ever goes to that spider, it won't leave the flower. There's a little fly, a tachnid fly. That's a little parasitic fly. Nectarin on the nectary. You can see the purple part of the flower. That's the nectary. There's some kind of little insect. I'm not sure what that is. There's a little cucumber beetle or some kind of little beetle. So look at all the different stuff coming to the plant. And look at this, y'all. I saw this bumblebee under this deal and I thought something was wrong. But look at all the pollination attached to the legs up there. I mean, it's like it's got some kind of little fringe pant leg or something hanging down there. But that is all pollen structures. And when this bee visits the next flower, more than likely it will transfer that pollen. So there's the pollination of the flower. But that is a good picture of that. Y'all, when I went over and touched her, she flew off. So wasn't nothing wrong. She was just tired. I've seen bees struggle on the flower trying to get loose because it's hard to pull that structure free. And this one here is I was taking this picture and this bee was trying to get away from me, right? But it couldn't. And then finally it pulled that pollination away and flew off. But there it is again. It's hard to pull them out. It takes a big, strong, powerful flying insect. And y'all, honeybees, I'm going to stop right here for a second. I don't like European honeybees, and I like honey, and that's a quandary for me. But here's a problem. This insect right here competes with our native bees, and our native bees are what pollinate our native flowers. I'm not saying this one can't, and it does some, like this one. It pollinates our milkweed, but it can't pollinate everything. Quick story, y'all. I was doing a prairie rescue about 2 years ago, and I was standing over a plant from the genus Astragalus, a beautiful legume. Purple flower was open, and a little native bee, about half the size of a European honeybee, flew into that flower, and it fit perfectly, just like a glove. And my first thought was, no European honeybee will ever pollinate Astragalus. And so it's not like politics, like I'm being a homer or anything like that. I don't want any non-native stuff here. It's just that our ecosystems are native plants, and we need the insects that co-evolve with our plants and our ecosystem. Same way in China, Japan, no matter where you are, you should be pushing your native plants because they serve your native insects. This is not just about pollen and nectar. This is a lot about leaf chemistry, reproduction of insects. Y'all, that audience, let me just stop here for a second and stay on this. I drove home from Austin in a stupid car that kept stopping and starting on me on purpose. And Subaru, I didn't know it was supposed to do that, but it did it anyway. So I got home, and you're supposed to clean the car before you turn it back into the rental agency. And guess what I did not have to do after driving from Dallas to Austin and back? I'm 64. And if I'd done that when I was a kid in my truck, I'd have had to stop every 50 miles to wipe the bug juice off my windshield. I had not one bug splatter on my windshield. That's a problem. Not for guys like me, gray-headed old men, but if I had grandkids or kids even, it's a problem for them, a big problem, a huge problem, more than nobody talks about it, but it's one of the biggest problems because the fundamental support and foundation of terrestrial ecosystems is kind of important for critters and for human critters too. So I don't like, so honey, and so here's the thing about European honeybees, because they live in huge colonies of thousands of stuff, almost all of our native bees, almost all, not all of them, but almost all are solitary. So somebody did a study, and where they forage in the same areas, European honeybees take enough resources, pollen and nectar, to support 100,000 native bees. You're getting out competed. That's a big problem. That's why so much non-native stuff like Queen Anne's lace can take off and go crazy. That's a European plant, European pollinator right here that co-evolve with it. Very effective pollinators, lots of seeds. And here's the problem now, leaf chemistry. Nothing eats them. None of our insects eat that plant. So I hate cows. I hate moo cows. I do my part to control their population by eating as many of them as I can wrap my teeth around. So to control population is important. Gray hair streak on this. So you can see lots of insects come to milkweed. Syrphid flies. These are the little things that look like little bees that hover around your flowers in your garden. And they actually find aphid colonies, and they lay an egg, and then the maggot emerges. And this one's eating an aphid alive. I love to watch that. This one, the guy can eat about 50 to 100 aphids a day. I'm an organic horticulturist, and this is why I can be organic, because all these beneficials take care of these problems for me. This right here, this is if you see these on your milkweed or any plant, this is the pupae, the pupating larva of syrphid flies. Syrphid flies will emerge from this and go and do other good things. Those little guys are important pollinators too. So here's a ladybug and a lacewing larvae. So look at all the beneficials that come and eat their stuff that they need to develop. We want these beneficials. So, and milkweed is going to have these aphids. So another good reason to have them in your landscape. Look at this. Here's this is a great photo. I got lucky. This is a syrphid fly laying an egg on the milkweed pod. When the egg hatches, the maggot will start eating these aphids. There's one. This is a wasp. It's actually laying its egg in the aphid. The egg's gonna hatch. It's gonna eat the aphid alive, and then it's gonna pupate inside the husk. So look at this picture. All the yellow ones are live aphids. All the ones that look brown and kind of blown up, those have a wasp pupating inside of them. That the husk, the exoskeleton of that aphid now becomes the chrysalis of that wasp. So here's what it looks like. When the wasp forms in there and it's ready to emerge, it eats that little hole and then emerges and leaves this thing. So I love that. That's awesome stuff right there. Milkweed longhorn beetle. Here's another thing that hosts on milkweed. So on and on and on. I mean, it just goes on. This plant is incredibly dynamic. Milkweed bugs. These guys eat milkweed seeds. So here's what controls the population of milkweed. Eating it doesn't kill it. It'll just grow back again. Mowing it doesn't kill it. That a plant doesn't know if it's getting eaten or mowed down. It just knows it got something gone. It needs to grow it back, and it does it no problem. But these guys right here, they actually stick their proboscis, that needle-like structure, into the seed and secrete an enzyme which liquefies the embryo of the seed, and they suck that goodie back out. But we got to have these guys too. Got to control the milkweed pie. Everything needs controlling. Here's what they look like as they start getting a little bit older and they cluster together, because that color is like danger. Don't eat me. I'm either going to get you or I got some poison in me. Oranges and reds are danger signals in nature. Got this fancy word, they call it aposematic species, and kind of interesting, but here they are. As they get older, they still stay clustered. So if you see these guys on a plant, they won't hurt you at all, but they look menacing, don't they? So that's the whole point. Excuse me. They look menacing. Queen, here's some more stuff that hosts on milkweed. Queen butterfly caterpillar. This is a queen butterfly. Looks a little bit different than the monarch. Monarch caterpillar. Monarch butterfly on basket flower. Here's a beautiful, this annual right here is in bloom right now. Gorgeous, stays in bloom a long time. I don't encourage annuals in people's home landscapes because they usually take over because they produce a lot of seeds. Here's an exception. If you can get this one going, fantastic plant. Y'all, here's a difference. Look, very close difference between monarch and queen caterpillars. One on the left is the monarch, one on the right is the queen. You can see the sets of tubercles. Those aren't antennae. Monarch has two sets on either end. Queen on the right over here has that middle set kind of toward the head end. Just kind of looks scary. Like, don't bother me. Won't bother, can't hurt you. Here's side by side, queen on the left, monarch on the right. Y'all, this is most landscapes. This right here supports nothing. This is monoculture of death, I call it. So future considerations, habitat loss. This is a problem for all species out there, but especially for insects. We can mitigate that slightly by putting native plants in our home landscape. But we need to give your money to organizations that preserve big chunks of land. And it's not just things like the Nature Conservancy, Quail Unlimited, Elk Unlimited, Turkey Unlimited. I know those are hunter supported foundations, but those guys buy tracts of land. Elk people, they got to buy 10,000 acres. You can't buy in 1 acre and support an elk. So, and look, when they're supporting, that's a lot of pollinator habitat. So you can make changes on property you control, and then again, donate to entities that buy land and put it under conservation easement. Landscape industry, this is a static landscape design. This is what they want. They want to be able to just come and just do nothing, mow, blow, and go. There's nothing to do here. That only grows a little bit at a time. You want a dynamic landscape, actually one that requires some work. That's got some stuff going on. That's what you want, some life, some living stuff happening in your yard. And I'd say throw food out there too. It doesn't have to be just if you got pollinators out there, throw food into the mix, right in the middle of it. And I don't mean a dedicated spot for your garden. I mean, just intermix the veggies right in with everything else. That's the way they evolve, and that's the way they do better. I promise you. So this is what we find it's typical. So avoid this, y'all. If you've got it now, just start making changes. Just take stuff out that's not native and start putting stuff in. And look, these shrubs, you got a yaupon there, that's okay. Dwarf yaupon doesn't do much. Live oak, I mean, those are all native, but most of this yard is in turf, and turf is a water hog. It's another problem. Okay, here's the pictures, y'all. Milkweed seedlings. The first thing I want you to notice is the two big roundish flat leaves, the ones that are closest to the ground. Those are the cotyledons. I'm going to spell that Cotyledon. And I did spell that in English. I hope you could. It's just the embryonic leaves. And listen, they're green, they have chlorophyll, but they don't really photosynthesize. They're basically like the yolk sac of a fish. It's stored carbohydrates in there. The first true leaves are what's coming out of the center of between those two cotyledons. So look right in the center of the picture and look at that first big one that you see in the middle. It's kind of blurry. Look at the one right at about the 2 o'clock position right behind it. Here's what's unique about milkweed. You see how it's coming out of the middle? Those are the true leaves. You see how those two big rounded ones are split apart? Almost all the time when a seed comes up, those cotyledons will be joined together. You almost never see that split. And when the seed first germinates, you don't see the seed, the first true leaves. That's about 2 or 3 days after it germinates. The first thing you see are those cotyledons, and they're split with a V, just like this. The stem is my arm. Right here's my arm. That's the stem. Then you see the split, and then there'll be a leaf over here and a leaf over here. That's unique. Nothing else coming up. Even if it's weed seeds, I've only seen a couple of other genera. And I think they were in the milkweed family, not this genus, but this is almost unique to this family. So when you see that, when the seed first germinates, you know that's your milkweed. Okay, so there's a good picture of it right there. Another thing that's kind of unique to your seedlings too, it's very faint in this picture. Those big round cotyledons, can you see the veins? Most cotyledons on most species of plants don't have veins. That's very unusual. But look at this. Very prominent. This is actually Asclepias viridis, and they have the most prominent veins of any of the species. And I think that's one of the species y'all are growing, viridis, asperula, and nothrioides, if I'm correct. So your viridis will be vein evident. I'll put it like that. But look in this picture and you'll see what I'm talking about. That split cotyledon. That's going to be the most obvious characteristic right there. You'll know you've got your milkweed. And y'all, this will occur 3 to 5 days, sometimes 7 if the seed's old. You'll see germination pretty quick. You see what we've got going here. Y'all, this is actually not milkweed. This is some Salvia azurea, but I want to show you this method of growing milkweed. These are called cell flats. This is a 50 count cell flat. And these plugs that are created here are 2 inches by 2 inches by 5 inches. That's the dimensions. And I highly encourage you to get some of these if y'all are going to do this long term and grow them in these kinds of pots. Here's why. The taproot on milkweed is very important, especially around where y'all are. You have thin soils and you're dry. That root needs to go deep quickly in those 4-inch pots. They're going to hit the bottom. That root grows fast, about 3 times the rate of the top. They're going to hit the bottom of that 4-inch pot. And they're going to start curling around. They're going to be girdling around the bottom of that pot. So when you plant, and when you turn that plant out of that pot, if you straighten one of those out, you'll see how deep that root could have and wanted to go. Now, they'll want to go deeper than 5 inches, deeper than this. But here's the thing. This is open at the bottom. I put cotton balls in the bottom to keep, I learned that the hard way to kids. When you fill this up with soil, there are drain holes in it. And I set this in a little shallow tray to water. You can actually see that water line on the bottom of this. You want to water these from the bottom up because you can't put enough water in the top. That top, you see the void between the top lip of that tray and where you see soil? That's about a 1/4 inch. 5 inches deep. How many times do you have to fill that well up to fully saturate that 5 inches? Well, I know that there's 4 of them in every inch. So that's going to be 20 times. That's a long time to stand there. So you set this thing down in about a 3-inch deep pan, shallow pan, fill that thing up with water. That takes about 5 seconds and let this thing suck that water up through capillary action. So there you go. Learn from me there. But the other thing too is when that root gets to the bottom of that and grows out the bottom of that, it will air prune. It will never girdle or turn a circle. It'll just keep growing and growing straight down and keep getting air pruned. But when you put that thing in the ground, that root now will grow straight. Those curling roots will not. The tip of the growing tip will turn down, but you'll have a big old wad of roots like this sitting there that should be straight going down. So what y'all are doing is okay because you're going to learn. There's a learning curve on this. And those plants will, if they're in your flower bed and not in a wildscape where they have to depend on rainfall, you can keep them alive, no problem. So let me show you what these plugs look like when you pull them out of this tray. Look at that root development. Look at that. It's beautiful. You can handle this. Easy to handle. Let me tell you something else. Digging that hole, you get a 3-inch auger bit on the end of a cordless drill and you're on your way. No problem. Unless you got limestone at 2 inches, then you got a problem. But my point is, this is an easy hole to dig. Easy hole to dig. And look, establishing your plants is nothing more than this. getting those roots out of that root ball and into your native soil. And look at this, 4 sides to that plug. Every side is covered solid with roots. Any new root growth is going to be immediately into native soil. Now, somebody might say a 1-gallon plant, turn it out of a pot. If there's roots on all sides, well, those roots are growing right into native soil too immediately. Yes, they are, but they're also based in 1 gallon of potting soil that is going to dry out faster than the surrounding native soil. So the bigger thing you plant actually is harder to establish because all those roots are solid in that root ball. You got all this foliage that's dependent on every one of those roots. And as soon as it gets exposed to the outside, it's going to be pulling that moisture out of there and it's going to dry those roots out really quick. So y'all, we're 20 till now. This is my last slide on this. So I'm going to go back to try to get out of this and go. Okay, there we go. So y'all now, if everybody's not asleep and if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer that. But wait, let me go real quick. So what y'all are going to do tonight is what y'all have done is y'all have cold, moist stratified your seeds for 30 days. Y'all, that's an evolutionary strategy to get that seed to overwinter, because a lot of times you'll see these plants in the fall casting seed in October, November. We get our first frost around November. So let's say the seed cast in late October, you get a little baby seedling out there. First frost comes early, all that generation's gone. So these plants have evolved to know that the seeds that don't germinate till next spring, those are the ones that make it. So the 30 days in the refrigerator, what we did, we mimicked the seed being cold all winter long. So the chill, those 30 days of chill, that was enough to break the dormancy in the embryo. And while it was in the moisture was so that the seed could absorb moisture during that process. And when moisture crosses through that seed coat and gets into the embryo, germination has started. Doesn't mean the root has come out, the radicle or the thing is sprouted, but that's what starts it going. So after 30 days, the dormancy is broken in the embryo. So what y'all are going to do now is y'all are going to take those seeds and y'all are going to sow them. And they're like, oh my, it's spring. They're going to get warm. And this is temperature driven. And we are just right temperatures right now to germinate these seeds. So I'm going to go through this process. Y'all have been asked to put your seeds in some Ziploc baggies with some moist soil for 30 days and roll them up real tight and squeeze all the air out. What we're going to do now is just to loosen all that up. You're going to unroll that baggie and make open it up just a little bit and blow it up like a balloon and then seal it off real quick and then shake that bag. And what you're trying to do, because over that time, when you pressed all that soil together in those seeds, it kind of became clumped and kind of stuck together. What you're just trying to do now is just separate all that. Now, y'all, if y'all remember what the milkweed seed looked like and you didn't use a ton of dirt to do this with, you'll be able to see those seeds. And if you go through there and find them, you can pick them out and then you can sow those seeds directly. Now, on planting seeds, the general rule of thumb is, how deep do you plant a seed? Well, if they need planting, because some seeds they require light to germinate. Your goldenrods are like that. If you plant them and cover them with dirt, they won't germinate. They got to have light. Hibiscus are like that, but this seed's got to have dirt. So when seeds need to be covered, the general rule is plant the seed no more than twice the diameter of the seed. Now, milkweed seed is flat, so it really doesn't have much of a diameter. So, but on that one, no deeper than about a 1/4 inch is what you're going for. So if you can find the seeds individually, poke a 1/4 inch hole in there with a pencil or anything like that and drop the seed down in there. I use tweezers. Doesn't matter how it's oriented. When the radicle, that's the embryonic root, when it emerges, it's going to go downward. And then it's going to, again, then it'll go down, and a couple of days later, then you'll see the green top come up. But you got to cover that up. Now, I think Linda said get some mist bottles with some water. And then after you put the seed in the hole, cover it back up and then mist that. Now, you're not trying to water that whole pot. It should already be wet. What you're trying to do is, through capillary action and actually the weight of that water, it's going to pull that dirt in back behind that seed and it's going to eliminate that air pocket. You kind of create a little air pocket when you make that little 1/4 inch hole and you put the seed, even though you backfill it with dirt, you've actually create a little air pocket. We want to kind of seal that off because we don't want that seed to dry out before it germinates. So if you use your mist bottle and kind of spray it till the top of that whole 4-inch pot has a little sheen on it, like a little lake sitting there, you've done enough right there. And y'all, I would not put these in direct sunlight. They don't need light to germinate. You can put them in a closet and they'll still germinate. Again, 3 to 5 days for fresh seed. Be looking for that. But anywhere outside in the shade, bright shade is fine. And when they germinate, leave them there. And then you'll have to harden them off a little bit over time to move them out in the direct sun. And how I do that is I do morning sun for a little bit and then give them some afternoon shade and then just leave them out a little bit longer each day. Now, when do they need to go into the ground? If y'all are going into your flower beds, improve soil, and you can water them and take care of them, as soon as you can turn them out of that pot, I'll tell you what, as soon as you get 2 sets of true leaves, turn them out of the pot and start looking to see if you should have plenty of root growth by that time. If you're doing them at your home, you can put them in there anytime. If you're going directly into native soil and it's clay soil, I would wait until the fall, because here's why. If you have to keep re-wetting that clay soil, the shrink swell properties of clay soil, you're going to keep swelling it. It's going to stay swollen. You're going to drive all the pore space, all the air out of it, and you're going to rot that plant trying to keep it watered over the summer. So that's the caveat. If you're going into native soil, in our clay soil anywhere, wait till the fall. And that means October, November. Be a good time to do that. In your home landscape, you can do it anytime it's rooted out well enough to do that. Now, y'all, here's another little thing about this. This plant, because it goes into a summer dormancy, it can do it at any stage of its life. I mean, the thing can come up, you'll see the seed, and like I said at the first of this, one day you'll see them out there, they look beautiful, and they won't all do it. It's all different genetics. Because I grow them in the dozens, so I'll have them like, there's 5 or 6 of them the next day that just like they withered away. And I know they didn't wither because they were wet, because they were the same as everything else. But so I learned the hard way. After that happened to me a few times, I would turn that pot out thinking that the plant had died, and there was a whole big old nice, beautiful set of white taproot. And I could see the little bud at the top of it, that the little bud the little crown, the new offset waiting to come. So I buried it back, and sure enough, when it got fall, it came on back out. Now, if they do go dormant, sometimes they may come back, a month later. Sometimes they may not come back till the fall. Sometimes they may not come back till spring. But my point here, never give up on them until the following year. If you get that seed to germinate and you get a live plant and it goes in the ground, or you get a live plant in a pot, the chances, unless you just let it dry out completely, or you kept it completely wet all the time, the chances that you killed that plant are low. It's not easy to kill. They're tough plants. But again, it's kind of like raising kids. Each one has its own personality, and you just got to kind of weather the storm. And I've never raised kids, but I've been in schools a lot. So, I've been around kids, but I love them all. Don't get me wrong, but that's why they need parents, because they're kids. So anyway, y'all, I know I was a little long-winded. I apologize for that, but that was probably had some questions about stuff like that. So any questions out there?
I have one. I've got some milkweeds right now, and they look skinny and strong. And I've got 2 grow lights on them. Do they need a lot more light, or what?
Now, ma'am, I'm a smart aleck. So, but never to hurt anybody's feelings. So you got them under a grow light when you inside the house.
Yes.
Ma'am, you got the best grow light, the one they evolved with, right outside right now. That's where they need to be.
Well,
Now,
I did put them outside for 2 days, but so you just leave them out. Is that what you're saying? And just kind of put them in shade?
And ma'am, again, I wasn't trying to be ugly at all, but I will say this. Well, here's the thing. If you start them inside, then yeah, you probably started them under lights, but y'all, unless you have some real grow lights, like they're always going to stretch and get real. If you've ever tried to start vegetables early, like under fluorescent lights, they start stretching and get real thin. It's just the light intensity is not enough. So, and you know what? There's no reason to start milkweed. And I'm not fussing at you, but there's no reason to start milkweed inside. It doesn't need an early start. If you're going to do this the natural way, start stratification March 1st, pull them out of the fridge April 1st, and that's when they all start germinating outside and normally anyway. And they get that natural, strong sunlight from the beginning, and they stay low and stout and squatty. So, man, for you, your plants are probably going to flop. They may never get that. Plus, outside, the wind playing on them, it stiffens the outside cell structure of plants, and that's what stiffens them up and makes them stay straight up. So for you, put them outside. Like I said, I'd put them in the bright shade, not in direct sun, and just leave them out there. And they may fall over and look floppy, but it's like the first day of school. They just got to take it. And they'll take it, and they'll be fine. But just don't put them in that full sun. And what you'll know that they'll do better when the growing tip starts turning up. Then it's like, okay. Now again, it may never stand up erect after that, but if it does flop over, when that growing tip turns up, you'll know it's turned the corner and it's okay with the outside light. But you're just going to have to go ahead and put them out there in some bright shade and just take a deep breath, and it'll be okay. That's a good question, though. That's a real good question.
Anybody else question? I have a question. Sorry, I can't write that. Real good with my milk last year, and last summer they were up probably 6 foot tall. I had all kinds of pods. They were so happy. And in the fall, my husband cut them down level to the ground, and they did not. And I'm just heartbroken about it. So if I do get them going again, like, what's my rule? And I'm sorry you already covered this. Like, how do I kind of trim them back? Because they just get those long stick legs on them, or should I leave them alone?
What was the species?
It was for the monarchs. It was the milkweed for the monarchs.
Oh, well, when you said 6 feet tall, I was thinking we don't have, you know what? Here's why. That's tropical milkweed. That's an annual. That's why. Yeah, because we don't have milkweed that gets that tall. Y'all, let me say something about tropical milkweed right now. There's a lot of controversy around that plant. And let me just say this. I'll just say this. I'll lump it in like I would with any other thing. If it's native to where you are, then grow it. But if it's not, don't grow it. Here's the other thing too. If you are going to grow it, about right now, cut it down and keep it cut down till winter time, till it can't. Don't ever let it come back up and make a leaf from June 1st till next spring.
He's talking about tropical
milkweed.
But there's a tuberosa that people call tropical.
That's not that's Asclepias tuberosa. I'm talking about Asclepias curassavica. That is tropical milkweed. It usually has. Bad. Yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. It's bad for monarch butterflies, unless you're in Mexico where it's native, and then it's wonderful. But we're not in Mexico, and it's not native here. It's not native where you're at. It's not native in San Antonio. It's not native in Laredo. Well, it might be native there. Might be. There's a lot of controversy around that plant about where it is. It's equatorial, we think, really, mostly. I mean, it probably came up a little farther north, but think about it. It needs a lot of water. The Chihuahuan Desert, the Sonoran Desert, all along our border here. I mean, there's no way I say there's no way, but just if you're growing or using Asclepias curassavica, ma'am, whoever that was, that's bad. You don't want that. So you should actually go home and bake your husband a cake for doing that. Getting mad at him. Good question. That's a great question, by the way. Great question.
So you said that. So the elephant in the room every year is that's the only one people can grow, and that's the only one they sell in the stores. Yes. So which species would you recommend that they buy?
Ma'am, you know what? I wouldn't recommend they buy any of them because I don't know where listen, I know you're getting frustrated with it, but here's the thing, ma'am, you're fixing to grow native milkweed. And let me tell y'all something, that diversity I talked about, you need to, either go collect it yourself or buy some native plant seeds and start growing your own plants. And listen, what if you don't want to do that? Here's what you do: fill your bird feeder up with native plant seeds and let the birds do it. They'll do it for free, and they'll spread them everywhere, even to places that people don't want them. And that's wonderful. You want a guerrilla farm. You want to guerrilla farm your native plants. So fill your bird feeders up with native perennial seeds. But ma'am, no, really, you're fixing to see how easy this is to grow these plants. And once you do, you'll never go pay $15 for a perennial again.
There's a really good question.
What's the expected germination rate? Do you always use a single seed per starter pot, or should you use 2 or 3 to make sure you get a start?
You know what? So that's a great question. When you're individually sowing, like y'all are going to do tonight, if you do individual seeds, I like to do 2, because there's a lot of work and a lot of soil that goes into making that whole flat of 4-inch pots up, right? So if you get them in there and you know what, the germination percentage on germination on seeds depends a lot on proper timing on collection. Most people collect too early, and like I say, then you get poor germination or weak germination. So if you just be patient and you do the collecting, because when you buy, another thing too, when you buy these seeds, and I'm not going to mention, there's a company down south, y'all, and I love the company. I love the owners. They have good stuff. But let me tell you something. When you start making native plants a crop, that you're going to collect and sell that seed, to me, that becomes a problem. And I'll tell you why. My nursery is unique in that I grow my plants from seed. And it's a terrible business model, because I spent a lot of money going out to prairie remnants, finding these seeds, cold moist stratifying them, doing what y'all are doing tonight to get these plants, because I want the genetics. So, but when I go out there and I collect these seeds, not everything is ripe at the same time. Not everything's ready. But if you've got them in a row crop, you can't go, they don't hand collect. They do this by machine. So they collect everything all at once, and they collect mature seeds and immature seeds. So unless they do a PLS test, which is pure live seed, they germinate the seed and give you a percentage germination of that seed that they just collected. You don't know. But I'm going to tell you, when you go wild collect seeds, that's why my germination rates on what we do here is so high, because we go hand collect them. We can see it's ready or it's not ready. So that's a great question, sir. I don't even know if I answered it.
You did, yes.
Well, we got our seeds from Native American Seed, which is your recommendation when we talked.
They're the best in
And
the business.
They are
But-
very careful.
But they're still a commercial seed producer. And as such, I love them. They're the best. They're the best in the business. They get my endorsement, and I don't give endorsements, but because their genetics are right. And like I say, then the owners are ethical. Bill and Emily Neiman, that's the father and daughter. They're the most ethical people you'll ever meet. So I love them. I love their company. But like I said, they're in a seed producing business, and that to me that's why. And it's not their fault. They're not doing anything wrong. It's just, you can't stop that combine or however they're doing that, and go around that echinacea that still ain't right. It's not right yet. So all that immature seed gets mixed in there. So, but they don't ever say it's 100%. Nobody ever does. And no seed is, no matter who's collecting it, there's never 100% germination. But so what we generally do is we sow in a seed flat, all of our seeds. And when they germinate, we'll dibble out individual plants. My sister actually does that. And let me tell y'all what, she's great at it. And women are better at that than men. They're more patient. They care about the seedlings more. It's like, man, I don't know, that one counts. So, and I'll say, when she dibbles out those individual plants and you're putting them you're stuffing roots down into a hole, but it's a lot more efficient. And so you don't have to worry about, individual seeds and trying to find them. If you're doing seed flats tonight, you'd be taking that loose stuff, even throwing them into that same size, baking sheet, 8x12 baking sheet, 2 inches of soil, spreading them out, covering up with dirt, watering them, and then who cares? Whatever germinates, germinate, and then dibble out the individuals and put them in the individual pots. So
So we need to save our seeds from every plant that germinates and makes a pod. Then we should collect those seeds for next year.
yes, ma'am, absolutely. Yes. So y'all listen, another thing too, last thing I will say, because I know I'm running up against the time barrier here, but y'all, just like anything, you're gonna have some wins and losses. You're gonna lose some plants, but concentrate on the wins. And let me tell you, you're not, even though you really might, if you don't know anything about it, you're really not that far off in nature. Because listen to this statistic. Crazy number. It's like 1/100th of all the seeds cast make it to a reproducing adult. So when you go out there and you see plants that are producing seeds, that seed that flew off the mother plant from somewhere else and made it, that's 1/100th of the percentage of the seeds. So that's why they throw so many seeds out there. So if you think everything that y'all plant tonight is going to make it, it's not going to, and nor should it. Because let me tell you, some of those seeds are genetically inherently weak. Some won't make it past that first little stage, but some will take everything you can throw at them. And those are the ones that make it through everything that with the summer of 2011, through everything. That's the refinement of the genetics. And that's why it's so important what y'all are going to do. Every seed that y'all are going to plant tonight is genetically unique. If the plants grow and live, you'll all take them home or plant them somewhere. That's the dispersal. Those plants now can flower and serve our pollinators, and then more seed dispersal will occur. So y'all are a part of the dynamic now. And again, just wade right on in there. The first cake you ever made didn't turn out edible, probably right either. So you're doing something new for the first time. So y'all just don't worry about it. And seeds are easy to come by. So that's why plants are out there and produce so many. So y'all listen, one other thing too. My email address is easy. It's organicrandy@gmail. But even better than that, well, I'll let y'all be the judge of this. I have a Facebook page called Randy Johnson Organics. Randy Johnson Organics. And y'all, I do a lot of little 2 and 3 minute videos. Just when I happen upon something native plant wise, usually I stop and make a video about it. And sometimes if you're not very smart, you can learn something. If you're smart, you won't learn anything. But it's out there for you. So please leave comments on there. It's another way you can get to me there. You can leave comments right there and say, hey, what about this? What's up? Y'all can tell I hate talking about this stuff. So y'all listen, thank you so much for the questions. If I didn't mean to make anybody mad at me. I was trying to be funny. I should probably just stick to talking about plants, but ma'am, you're probably going to end up being the best milkweed grower of the whole group.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all good luck. Good luck, y'all. Bye.